that have taken place in the U.S. a couple of years later appear overseas. Maybe they're sold more than borrowed through the international aid assistance network. And a lot of it is tied to a veritable global ideology, as I'll talk about, which puts a lot of countries on the same page in terms of what reforms they're practicing. Although the contexts are very different. I mean, developing countries don't have universal primary education, let alone secondary education. You got a lot of kids who drop out of primary school. In fact, there's a lot of parallels between looking at primary school dropouts in developing countries and looking at high school dropouts in developing countries. Teachers in developing countries have very little education. Sometimes just one level more than the level they're teaching at. The financial constraints, and not just the recent crisis, financial constraints over the longer haul, and the pressures for expansion have yielded in a lot of developing countries contract teachers who have even less education than the teachers, the regular teachers. This is a very controversial phenomenon, the idea of contract teachers, and whether they're an improvement to the system overall or not. And teacher salaries in developing countries are very low. One of the meetings I did came across saying that they're less on average than $3 a day. $3 a day for a teacher. That's very low. But it's more than a lot of people live on. People are living on $1 or $2 a day in many countries. But still, it's very low. Okay, some examples of merit pay. I'm just going to go through the main point of a number of articles. I'll start with developed countries. This is by Peter Levy, and it's about performance pay in Israel. And in this study, it was a study of teachers being rewarded with cash bonuses for improving their students' performance in high school exams. They did a randomized treatment, which is hot these days. Everybody wants to do random assignment. I can talk about that a little later as well. Because the issue of whether you can really do performance pay is wrapped up in research methods issues, which I'll talk about. But Levy results were the teacher incentives led to significant improvements in student performance, increasing the rates at which students actually took the test, which they were voluntary, and their mean test scores. No evidence was found of manipulation of test scores by teachers, which is something we're worried about. A second example, also in a developed country, in the United Kingdom in 1999, was an experiment with performance-related pay policy for teachers using what literature calls value add. The gain scores corrected for differences in students and other factors. Again, a very problematic research methodology that I'll talk about. But that's what they used. And the study reported significant student progress for treatment teachers, the ones who were doing performance-related pay, compared to control teachers. And they reported a very large increase in test score per student on the order of 7/10 of the standard deviation, which is very high. but not in all subjects. For example, math teachers showed no effect for participating in the program. So very aggressive. The rest of the, you know, this wasn't a careful review of literature. So there may be more out there in developed countries, I'm sure there are. But it was, we tried to capture as much as we could, at least, you know, just by titles. Merit pay, incentive pay, performance pay, and we didn't see anything else in developed countries. This is a study by Paul Louis and colleagues in rural Kenya. There was a teacher incentive program. Students in program schools had higher test scores, significantly so on some exams, which means it wasn't significant on other exams. I'd say that. However, they looked at how this effect happened. And they said that the study provides little evidence of teacher effort aimed at long-run learning. Teacher attendance did not improve, homework assignments didn't improve, and pedagogy didn't change. What you got were more cram courses, teaching for the test. Students did not retain these gains after the end of the program, and so the results were consistent with the hypothesis that teachers focused on manipulating what gave them reward with short-term test scores. Two studies from India, one by Murali Haran and Sundararama. Well, they have no relationship to how they pronounce their names. But this was another randomized experiment of a teacher incentive program in a particular state in India. Bonuses to teachers' salary of, on average, 3% of salary. So you can get, on average, your salary went up 3% if you received a bonus. And students in the incentive schools perform better than those in control schools, but not by a lot, by about 0.15 standard deviations. They looked at group incentives as well as individual teacher incentives, and they found both worked. The other study in India was kind of strange results, that after controlling for things like student ability, parental backgrounds, resources available, that the incentive pay structure worked in private schools, but not in public schools. So they didn't really have a good explanation of that. A review by the African Development Association Working Group on Education Financing. This is an older one. Most of the ones I've read are from 2004 to 2008. This was 1997. And they found that merit pay schemes had a negligible impact on teacher effectiveness, but were very costly. So they did a review of the literature, arguing it was probably not a good investment to do these merit pay schemes. And another example of negative result, but in a different way. This was in Benin, Africa, and merit-based pay increases was introduced in 1999. But the teachers opposed it.